And welcome back to EDH Deck Building. I am your host, Demo, and it's time for Brothers War. We're getting spoilers now. I mean, we already got a few already, I guess. And I'm a little more excited about this set than I am about a lot of sets. Sort of like I was with Dominaria United, where they had a lot of reimagined older characters. I kind of liked seeing that. Here, it's even more the case because we get a lot of really iconic characters in the game. Some of the most iconic there is, like Urza and Mishra. And in fact, it looks like we're going to be getting a whole bunch of iterations of Urza and Mishra, and that's what we're going to start out with this time. So we got Urza, Prince of Krug, 2 white and a blue human artificer, 2/3. Artifact creatures you control get +2/+2. Pretty good. I mean, obviously you could do a darn decent artifact creature theme with that. Pay 6. Create a token that's a copy of target artifact you control, except it's a 1/1 soldier creature in addition to its other types. Okay, well, that's interesting. I mean, 6 is a lot. That's a lot of mana. However, you're creating a token copy of an artifact you control, except you can turn it into a creature. Now, normally that is going to be a bad thing, right? Because artifact creatures are the easiest things to get rid of in the format because, of course, they die to all the artifact removal and they die to all the board wipes as well, right? So a Vandal Blast is going to be a blowout for you, obviously, and also a Blasphemous Act or a Wrath of God is going to be a blowout as well, right? So artifact creature tribal, obviously you're in artifact creature tribal here. Right out of the gate, you're already at a bit of a downside. Thankfully, your commander is not an artifact, so at least you're not getting completely screwed. But you would have to do some research. Like, that's a lot of mana. 6 mana to create a token copy of an artifact you control. Again, the fact that it's a creature as well is mostly going to be a downside. However, obviously there's going to be some shenanigans that you can get into here, and you'd have to do the research. Maybe some people have already come up with some interesting combos where creating a copy of a certain artifact and making it a creature can somehow get you some sort of advantage or combo potential there. That's really all you can hope for here because, like I said, artifact creature tribal, you're already at a huge disadvantage there because you're susceptible to so much removal. Artifact creatures, not super great, right? If I'm thinking of really good artifact creatures off the top of my head, Esper Sentinel would be a great one, obviously, in this deck because it's white and it's also going to get the +2/+2 bump. After that, it really trails off, right? It's, Sad Robot and Meteor Golem and the stuff that you would typically play in a deck, I guess. Other than that, like it's not a lot of great stuff. You really need to find a great reason to basically because what you're doing is you're turning an artifact into a creature. That's what you're doing. You're doing that sort of Karn ability here, but permanently. So you just need to find some really neat artifacts to make it worth your while, where I'm going to copy it. That's okay. But turning it into a creature, I need that to be an advantage for me as well, right? Because it's already a disadvantage. So I'm sure there are some artifacts out there like that. I'm sure people will come up with some interesting stuff. All right, moving on. And we got a new Mishra as well. Tamer of Macfarlane. Never heard that one before. So 3 black and a red. Human Artificer 4/4. Permanents you control have. Ward, sacrifice a permanent. Wow. That's pretty good. That is really good, actually. So all your permanents, your Mishra included, your commander included, right? Your lands, your artifacts, everything, enchantments, all have ward, sacrifice a permanent, which of course means if your opponent wants to target them with a spell, they have to sacrifice a permanent in order to, or else it will get countered, right? So anyone who wants to target your stuff has to sacrifice a permanent in order to do so. That's really good. That's really good. All your permanents. I haven't read the other ability yet, but this could even make a great, not great, but an okay Super Friends commander for that reason, because all your planeswalkers are going to have ward, sacrifice a permanent, which is really good. That protects against a lot of removal. The other ability, though, is each artifact card in your graveyard has Unearth 1 black and a red. Wow. So I think that's our first time seeing Unearth on non-creatures, right? This is just artifacts. So I can unearth my Soul Ring if I want to. I don't know why you would do that, but of course, because when you unearth something, it comes into play, gains haste. Artifact creatures count here, so that will matter there. More so, I'm thinking something like a Ichor Wellspring or something, right? I can unearth my Ichor Wellspring, pay 3 mana, draw a card. Not bad, I guess, right? Yeah, I mean, there's probably a lot of neat things you could do there as well. A lot of neat things. This is a great commander. I mean, that first part, permanents you control have ward, sacrifice a permanent. This guy could be the commander for any deck with an ability like that. That's a fantastic ability to have. Force your opponents to sacrifice a permanent every time they want to target your stuff. That's great. You probably would want to go the looting, self-mill strategy, where now I can put a Meteor Golem in my graveyard and unearth it for 3 mana. I like the sacrifice theme here a little bit better. There is quite a bit of support in Rakdos colors for a artifact sacrifice theme, especially in red with the red recursion theme. So I'm going to be playing a lot of artifacts, like the Ichor Wellspring. I sacrifice it, draw another card, then I can unearth it, draw another card, right? That kind of stuff is probably what I would be doing in this deck. Throw a Tormod in here as well, because every time you unearth, you're going to be creating a zombie token. You can get a lot of the graveyard shenanigans with things leaving your graveyard and all that kind of stuff. That's a great commander. Really great. Next up, we have Herkel, Master Wizard. And this is what I'm talking about, finally seeing cards like this. This is from Herkel's Recall fame. Return all artifacts target player controls to their hand, I believe. So now we finally see the real deal. This is the Herkel of Herkel's Recall. So 1 blue, Human Wizard Advisor, 2/4. At the beginning of your end step, if you've cast a non-creature spell this turn, reveal the top 5 cards of your library. For each card type among non-creature spells you've cast this turn, you may put a card of that type from among the revealed cards into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in random order. Boy, that's a confusing mouthful. Holy. So you're going to your end step. Okay, it's now your end step. This is going to trigger if you've cast a non-creature spell this turn. In order for this to trigger, you have to cast a non-creature spell. Not that difficult. So obviously you're not going to have a lot of creatures in this deck. Reveal the top 5 cards of your library. So you're going to reveal the top 5 cards for each card type among non-creature spells you've cast this turn. You may put a card of that type. Okay, so you don't want any creatures in this deck. You just don't, right? Just like when I made a Paco and Haldan deck, I put no creatures in there because Haldan is only casting non-creature spells. So I'm like, why put any creatures in at all? I would probably put no creatures in this deck. None. Just maximize that value, right? So you cast a spell. It can be an artifact. That's probably the easiest way to go, right? I cast an artifact, a mana rock on my turn. On my end step, this triggers. I look at the top 5 cards of my library for each card type. So if all of I cast is a mana rock, then I'm going to look for an artifact because that's what I cast. I cast an artifact, right? So if I cast a artifact, an instant, and a sorcery on my turn, that's kind of a lot. But if I do, now I get to look at the top 5 cards of my library, and I can put an artifact, an instant, and a sorcery into my hand. Now, am I going to get those 3 card types out of the top 5? Not likely. You'd have to be really lucky. You can do some top deck manipulation here, obviously, which is what I would do. This is very similar to Elrond, isn't it? Very similar to Elrond, where at the end step, you look at the top cards of your library, and I think that one is sharing card types. You pick a card type and you put those in your hand. Elrond would probably be a great fit in this deck, mostly because the Hack-A-Side is scrying all the time, and setting up the top of your library might be really important here. You can't get lands with this, obviously, right? You know, like if I'm scrying, doing a lot of scrying here would be good, because if I see a land, I can tuck it on the bottom because it's just a waste, because I can't get lands with this. I can't get lands and I can't get creatures. Getting more than one card would be a little tough, because if you're going to load up your deck with instants and sorceries and artifacts and enchantments, let's say, for example, what are the even if you manage to cast all 4 of those on your turn, you're looking at the top 5 cards and going, okay, well, I can put a card of that type for each spell, right? If I'm reading this right, for each card type among, yeah. So I have to, if I can look at the top 5 and get all 4 card types, I can put them all in my hand, but what are the chances that's going to happen, right? Not great. There's some pretty good cards out there for reshuffling the top of your library. I mean, Sensei's Divining Top, but that only goes 3 deep. You could do like, what's that one from Kamigawa that digs pretty deep and rearranges. There's that blue enchantment that I can't remember the name of that everyone used to use that rearranges. It's like it's X ability, and you rearrange the top X cards of your library. So again, might be worth it. But Definitely, I would put some stuff like that. Probably a lot of scrying too. Again, just so I can scry those lands to the bottom. You might even want to throw Mana Severance in here. Later in the game, you can cast a Mana Severance, get all the lands out of your deck so that you're just hitting pay dirt every time, right? It's an interesting one. Moving on. And we have Titania, another Titania, voice of Gaia, 1 green, 3/4, reach. Whenever one or more land cards are put into your graveyard from anywhere, you gain 2 life. So it's going to be very similar to the other Titania. I would imagine you would be putting the Titania in this deck and vice versa. They probably would for sure go in each other's decks. At the beginning of your upkeep, if there are 4 or more land cards in your graveyard and you both own and control Titania, voice of Gaia, and a land named Argoth, Sanctum of Nature, exile them and meld them. This is a meld card. Okay, so I'm going to go have to find that card, I guess. And here it is. It is Argoth, Sanctum of Nature, and it is a land. So we're melding with a land. I guess that is suiting. Argoth, Sanctum of Nature, enters the battlefield tapped unless you control a legendary green creature. Okay, so I'm just going to evaluate this card entirely based on it being a land, because lands, of course, are very important in the format, the non-basic lands that do stuff. So it taps to add a green. So it's already a land that's tapping to add a green, which means you could probably put it in any green deck. It's going to enter the battlefield tapped unless you control a legendary green creature. So pay 2 green and tap, create a 2/2 green bear creature token, then mill 3 cards. Activate only as a sorcery. A land that taps for green and you can pay 4 and create a bear token. Pretty good. You can put that in a lot of decks, I'm sure, right? But of course, we're going to need this to meld with our commander. And again, it is at the beginning of your upkeep if there are 4 or more land cards in your graveyard. So that's where the mill fits in. And you both own and control. Hold on, I have to check. Oh yeah, that first ability is whenever one or more lands are put into your graveyard from anywhere. So milling is included there. You get to gain life. So this card could probably work in a lot of decks. Discarding lands, any of those discard land decks is going to love Titania because she's just going to gain you a bunch of life, right? So you have to have 4 or more land cards in your graveyard. They can be any. It could all be forests. Doesn't matter what kind of lands they are. And you both own and control. So you have your Titania and you have your Argoth in play. At the beginning of your upkeep, this will trigger and they will meld. And they become Titania Gaia Incarnate. Big giant tree folk. Looks like, it's an elemental avatar. Looks like a tree folk, but it's an elemental avatar. A star power and toughness. Vigilance, reach, trample, haste. Woo, baby. I'm guessing the power and toughness is equal to the number of lands you control, maybe plus the number of lands in the graveyard. Let's see. Titania Gaia Incarnate's power and toughness are each equal to the number of lands you control. Shocking. When Titania enters the battlefield, return all land cards from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Wow. That's pretty good. Is this better than the other one? What's the other one? The other one that was used for a little while, the mono green lands commander, that its power and toughness is equal to the number of lands you control, I think, plus the number of lands in graveyard. It was a little popular for a while. I haven't seen it in a long time. This is probably better, I think. Although, I mean, the melding is a little bit, it's iffy, right? It is definitely iffy. You can't look at the melded backside too much and think, that's going to be happening all the time, because it might not. First of all, you have a card in the 99 that you have to get your hands on. Now, in mono green, getting your hands on a land, not that difficult. So that part's not super difficult, but this card doesn't have any sort of protection for, right? So I can just swords this guy or any kind of removal, and then what? I mean, let's play out this scenario. It dies, goes to the graveyard, so both halves go to the graveyard. You send your commander half to the command zone, right? And then the land part is in the graveyard, which is not a big deal in green because you could probably get it out of the graveyard. So it's not so bad. It's not like you get a one go at this and then once they break up the party, you're screwed. You can revisit it, right? I mean, it has another ability here. 3 and a green. Put 4 +1/+1 counters on target land you control. It becomes an elemental creature with haste. It's still a land, so we got that ability as well. I mean, at the end of the day here, you're just making a big stompy creature that you're going to attack with. Not terrible, but it's not super exciting either. I don't think. You're in a mono green lands deck, which again is not super exciting. It's just another option. I mean, if you were playing that other one, I can't remember its name, you could very easily swap. They, again, probably goes in this deck. The other Titania goes in this deck. They all go in each other's decks, right? All of these mono green lands commanders, you could swap them all out You could very easily just swap out commanders. For someone who wants to have this really, having a meld commander is kind of cool. So you could just very easily swap this out if you have the old other Titania, or if you have, any of those other mono green commanders. It would be very easy to swap out. It's interesting. Not super exciting. All right, the last one today, and this is super exciting because this is a card. I don't know about you guys, but this is a card that I've been waiting for forever. Forever I've been waiting for this card. Gixx, Yawgmoth Praetor. There's actually two cards, two characters, legendary characters from of old that I have personally been waiting for them to get a card for a long, long time. Gixx is one of them. The other one is Ashnod. And because Ashnod's Altar, Ashnod's Transmogrant, Ashnod, right? You see their names on cards, and it's like, I wonder what that guy's doing. And so I'm hoping we see Ashnod as well. So Gixx, Yawgmoth Praetor, I mean, this guy, he only costs 3, and I'm thinking, man, Gixx is like a big deal. I mean, the art is amazing. You see the claw, by the way, claws of Gixx, right? So he's got the claw there, it looks like, which is pretty cool. 1 black, Phyrexian Praetor, of course, 3/3. Whenever a creature deals combat damage to one of your opponents, its controller may pay 1 life. If they do, they draw a card. Okay, that's a very interesting ability. So this is whenever any creature deals combat damage to one of your opponents. So you are already doing the whole, I'm enticing my opponents to attack each other. Obviously, your creature's dealing damage, right? When you get in for damage, you can pay a life, draw a card, right? And this is for each one. This is whenever you attack with 5 creatures, you connect with all of them, right? Whenever a creature deals, yep, you can pay 5 life, draw 5 cards. That's a really powerful ability. The fact that your opponents get to do it as well, though, makes it a little less powerful, but at the same time, encourages your opponents to attack each other, which is more of an upside. But that art is really badass. They killed it on the art. I mean, so far so good. So far so good. Very anticipated card. So far so good. Great art. Phyrexian Praetor. I like the ability. We got a big ability here, and I'm thinking if we're gonna have Gixx as only a 3-mana creature, we probably need a big ability here. 5 black, so 7 mana. Discard X cards. Exile the top X cards of target opponent's library. You may play lands and cast spells from among cards exiled this way without paying their mana costs. Yeah, that's no joke. That is a good ability. 7 mana, and you have to discard X cards. So, you have to have a full hand in order to make this worthwhile, which is obviously not good, because you're not going to want to pay 7 mana and discard 1 card. Because now you're going to exile 1 card from their library and then cast it for free. You just paid 7 mana for that. It better be worth more than 7 mana, right? You're paying 7 mana, so you're going to want to discard like 7 cards, I think. You're going to want to discard a lot. In fact, you might even want to go 8, 9 cards. And you could very easily do that with the first ability, right? You could attack, swing in, get in with like 5 of your creatures, draw 5 cards. Now you got 10 cards in your hand, and you can pay 7 mana on your second main phase and dump your entire hand, or maybe keep 1 or 2 cards. If you got a demonic tutor or something in your hand, a removal spell, keep that. Dump 7 or 8 cards in the graveyard, because you want it to. I think you want to do at least 7 here. I think if you're going to pay 7 mana, you're going to want at least 7 to discard 7 cards, because you're going to exile the top 7 cards of target opponent's library, right? So this is a Villainous Wealth, and everyone loves Villainous Wealth. We're Villainous Wealthing in mono black. Everybody loves that. People build their entire deck around that card. Now you don't have to. It's on your commander, right? This is going to be a very popular commander. So you're going to exile the top 7 cards of your opponent's library. You may pay lands and cast spells from among them. Of course, you can only play 1 land per turn. So you can, assuming you haven't played a land, you can take, I would say 7 cards. Let's say there's 2 lands in there. So that means we have 1 dud already. We play 1 land. We have 1 land we can't play. And then now we have 5 more cards. So you're casting 5 cards for free. Is that worth 7 mana and discarding 7 cards? I don't know, actually. They better be good, right? I mean, you could get a couple mana rocks in there. Like, you could. I don't love cards that whiff. I don't love Villainous Wealth. That's a card I've never played, because I don't like just, let's see what I get. Some people do like that. Some people do like rolling the dice and let's see what we get. You could end up getting a Rise of the Dark Realms or something, or an Expropriate. You could get lucky. Would be fantastic in this deck. I don't know if this would work, but what you could use is scheming symmetry, right? So they go tutor for something. But if your commander's Gixx, they're probably knowing I mean, it's pretty obvious what you're going to be doing there. So they're not going to go get some fantastic card just so you can cast it, right? But there is a few cards that can look at the top cards of your opponent's library. I get the Wand of Denials, one that looks at the top card. So if you look at the top card and it's terrible, you can throw it in their graveyard so that you're not wasting space. So that might be a good include here. Demir Machinations is a transmute card. I love transmute. Is it Demir Machinations? I think that's the one where you look at the top 3 cards of their library and you can chuck it in their graveyard. So there are some ways to look at your opponent's library in mono black where you can get rid of some fluff so that when you're using this ability, you know, you want some big payoff here, right? I like it. I'm happy. I am very happy. Gixx, I'm pumped to see them. Love the art. Love they did a great job. Really great job. Really happy with this. Pretty good start to Brothers War. I'm, again, like I said, a lot of nostalgia here, a lot of really iconic characters. So that part of it, I'm really, really pumped to see all this new stuff. So far, so good. We got some really cool commanders here. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. That is it for today, and thanks for tuning in.